I am joined now by Assemblyman Micah Lasher, who is running for Congress to try to replace Jerry Nadler, who has endorsed you. He wants you to be his successor. But I want to ask you, first of all, what role the support of Mr. Nadler, some of the progressives in this district, one of the operatives who helped Mr. Mamdani get elected mayor, what role do you think that's going to play in helping you to win?
Well, look, I'm honored to have the support of Congressman Nadler, Gail Brewer, our city comptroller, Mark Levine. But ultimately, this is an election that's going to be decided by the voters of this district, and they're some of the most informed, educated,
yes,
sophisticated voters anywhere in America. So they're not going to take, they're going to evaluate the candidates and come to their own conclusion. And I hope to make the case to them that I'm the right person to represent them.
You know, in the beginning part of the campaign, the positions on Gaza and what happened after October 7th was a big part of the race. And now that Israel has invaded and attacked, and the United States has attacked Iran, I wonder if that has now erased all the concerns about whether there was genocide in Gaza, there wasn't, and what Israel was doing.
I certainly think that the issues involved in how we try to bring peace to the Middle East, how we make sure that both Israelis and Palestinians can feel safe, that there is a stable region. I think all of those issues are important to the voters of the district, and they are going to want a congressman who can think about those issues, lead on those issues in a thoughtful way that acknowledges the complexity involved and the humanity of everyone involved. And that's certainly how I'm trying to lead.
So if you were in Congress now, would you have thought that the president exceeded his powers by going to war without asking Congress to authorize it?
I do believe that the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, gives Congress the sole authority to declare war, to initiate military conflict. And that is because our founding fathers didn't want to vest that authority in one individual. And President Trump obviously exceeded his authority in launching this war.
But now that we're in the war, what should Congress do about it?
I think Congress should bring this misadventure to a close. And I say that as someone who sheds no tears for the Ayatollah, who would like to see that regime no longer brutally rule Iran and wreak havoc in the region. But it's not even clear that this administration has any plan at all to bring that about. And as someone who believes in the rule of law, believes in the importance of the Constitution, you can't stand up for the rule of law when the goals are something that you share and be inconsistent about it. I stand up for the rule of law when Donald Trump is trampling on the civil rights of people in Minneapolis or New York City on immigration issues, and I stand up for the rule of law when Donald Trump is violating the Constitution and launching illegal wars.
But how about the situation itself, where you had a country that has been developing a nuclear power with the stated purpose of destroying Israel?
Oh, no one should understate the damage that Iran has caused regionally and internationally and the threat that they posed. But the question is, is this war legal? Is it wise? Is it going to drag the United States into a quagmire? And is it even going to bring about the demise of the regime? And I think that's entirely unclear. And that's why the president has an obligation to come before Congress and make the case for any military conflict that the president wants to initiate, which he did not do.
Do you see any situation where he could make the case that would convince you that he did the right thing by going to war with Iran?
I wouldn't rule that out, but we are so far from that having occurred. It's an entirely hypothetical exercise.
I guess the reason I'm asking the question is you have a situation where we're in the war.
Yeah.
We're shooting up their navy. We're attacking their missiles. We're trying to destroy their nuclear stockpile. And there are those people who would say, the goal of getting rid of the nuclear stockpile may be a good one because you don't want a nuclear war anyplace. So now that we're doing it, should we stay in it? Should we get out of it if it's half finished? Or do we need to, now that we're doing it, finish it off so that they don't have to do it again in 6 months or a year or 6 years?
I think time and again, we have fallen prey to the mirage of quick and easy military interventions that lead to long, drawn-out conflict and a situation that ends worse than it began. And there is no reason that the president has presented to the public, to the American people, or to Congress that this would be any different.
So do you think that this situation is going to affect the midterm elections, which you are a part of?
Certainly it could, and I think it's too,
Does it help Republicans? Does it help Democrats? Who does it help?
I don't have that crystal ball. It's on back order.
Okay, so let's talk about something closer to home, and that is one of your candidates is talking about the need to regulate AI. How do you feel about that?
I think we need strong federal regulation of artificial intelligence. This is a rapidly changing technology. It's a technology that's going to affect every component of our lives. And just as the federal government regulates the financial services industries and the major players that shape our economy, so too should the federal government be regulating artificial intelligence and the major entities that are driving that technology.
How do we regulate it?
Well, I think we need to deal with catastrophic risk, the risk that this technology could be used to cause enormous damage to our society. I think we need to...
Loss of jobs?
I think we really need to focus on the economic upheaval that it has the potential to cause. I've introduced legislation in Albany that would create wage insurance, a first-in-the-nation program that would say if you lose your job and move into a new field to try to gain new skills and begin anew, we would cover the gap in wages. So you don't have to remain on unemployment insurance. You don't have an incentive to remain on unemployment insurance, and you can go begin a new career, build new skills, and even if you have to take a salary haircut. I think that's the kind of program that we should look at the federal level as well.
But do you think the state could do it? We have about 15 seconds left. Should the state be creating new jobs?
Well, the state should always be creating new jobs, but I think the state has a role to play in looking out for people that may lose their jobs because of the economic upheaval that we're going to face. We're
going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversations continue right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. We'll be right back. We are back with Assemblyman Micah Lasher. So on Friday, the governor of the state of New York met with Tom Honan, who is the border czar. And obviously the question of ICE came up. And I know that you have been at the forefront of sponsoring legislation in Albany, among other things that would allow New Yorkers who might have been affected by ICE to sue them.
Yes.
Is that really something that you think that could happen?
Not only do I think it could happen, I think it's quite likely to happen. The governor has advanced two of the bills that I proposed as part of her executive budget. One, to create the right of New Yorkers to hold individual ICE agents legally accountable for the deprivation of our civil liberties and civil rights. And another bill to prohibit warrantless arrests at sensitive locations like schools, houses of worship, healthcare facilities. And I think those are two important pieces of work that the state needs to do to protect our immigrant neighbors.
But we just had an incident at Columbia where ICE agents went in, and some may say under false pretenses, to arrest somebody. You're trying to get those videotapes released. How come? Because
we know that ICE has engaged in deception as part of their reign of terror in cities across America. They quite clearly lied their way into the Columbia building where they detained Eli Agayeva from. And I think there's an enormous public interest attached to understanding exactly how they behaved, what they said, how they lied their way into that building. Also to find out whether any of them committed crimes. That's an important thing for the public to know.
But if you were to get that video and you were to disseminate it, do you think that would give her the ability to sue them if they got in there under false pretenses?
Certainly under the legislation that we are advancing in Albany, it would give her evidence to support litigation to enforce her civil rights.
So one of the issues that's kicking around Washington now that's sort of gotten swept under the rug because of the war has been the funding for DHS, where
Yes.
it's a continuation of the ICE discussion. And after what happened in Minnesota, Democrats especially, but many in Congress are asking for changes to what ICE agents can do, no masks and other things. What kinds of reforms would, if you were now in Congress, would you be pushing for before you would approve new funding for DHS?
Well, I will not support any new funding for ICE. I think ICE is an agency beyond reform. Certainly, I think those measures are useful. I support legislation in Albany to require the wearing of masks, for example. But I think ICE is a paramilitary force. It's a band of roving thugs, and it should be shut down. I believe that. And this country got along very well for 225 odd years without either the Department of Homeland Security or ICE. We had an agency called the Immigration and Naturalization Service that was focused on how we bring people into this country and make them citizens, not an agency focused on cracking down on people who are trying to live their lives.
I guess the question becomes this. After, during the asylum seeker crisis that New York City had, there were a number of people who came into this city that were said to be involved in criminal gangs or have been released from prisons in other countries. So the question is whether you need some entity, not ICE in your words, but some entity to go after the people who were committing crimes. I mean, there were drug gangs, the different gangs that, murder for hire and other things like that. So don't you need some entity that's going to find those people who are not citizens, who came in here and could do harm to our country?
Well, let's be clear. ICE is not statutorily a law enforcement agency. We have police departments, the FBI. We have a whole law enforcement infrastructure that solves and prosecutes crime. And when people are convicted of crimes, particularly serious crimes, they can be deported if they're not here legally. So I don't think, and by the way, I went to Minneapolis after Alex Preddy was assassinated on the streets there. There was absolutely nothing about what was happening in Minneapolis at the hands of ICE agents that was focused on criminals. They were indiscriminately picking people up, running through buildings, knocking on doors, pulling people over. It truly was a reign of terror. And so I think that much of that rhetoric about the focus on criminals and whatnot, it is a distraction from what was effectively, what continues to be, a mass deportation campaign that Donald Trump and Kristi Noem and Tom Homan and the rest of them are perpetrating.
Well, also, don't you think that some of these immigrants play an important role, especially in the economy of the state?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at New York City's population growth, we have not had in my lifetime a single year of population growth in New York City if you do not count international migration. If you exclude incoming New Yorkers who are coming from overseas from our population growth, we have been down in population every year in the modern history of this city. So it is an issue. I think it is a moral issue, but it is also very much an issue that is bound up in the economic health of New York City, which has always been a city of immigrants.
So if you were elected to Congress, what do you see as like your three biggest challenges, and what would you like to focus on? Well,
the first thing we need to do in the immediate is use every tool at our disposal to slow and stall what Donald Trump and his band of fascists are trying to do in this country. That's what I've done in the Assembly, searched for every statutory and legislative tool we can to fight back. So that's number one. And number two, I think the Democrats need to articulate an affirmative agenda that's focused on the economic needs of Americans and the economic hardships of Americans. And that's about building new housing so we can bring down housing costs, increasing federal investment in childcare. And we have a federal minimum wage that's been stuck at $7.25 an hour since 2009. That's $15,000 a year annualized. If Democrats don't fix that at the first available opportunity, nobody should ever vote for us again.
I guess the big question is, how do you pay for all of this?
Well, a lot of it doesn't cost money. Some of it does. And the way you pay for it is by making our tax code a whole lot fairer. The effective tax rate for the 100 richest Americans, these are multi-billionaires, is 24%. They are paying less in taxes than the average hardworking New Yorker. We need to make our tax code a lot more fair make sure that we are taxing the extraordinary wealth that is accumulated, make sure that people are paying taxes at all. Many of our richest Americans at this point have ceased to pay taxes more or less entirely because of the way that that they borrow against capital assets, earn no income on paper, and that will generate really all the money we need to pay for the programs that take care of hardworking Americans.
So I have to ask you, since you still are an Assemblyman in Albany, and the big issue in Albany is taxes, and the mayor's call for taxing the rich and corporations. The governor doesn't want to do it. It's an election year. Where do you see this all shaking down?
Well, I think what's vitally important is that we not balance the budget on the backs of working families. And we need to make sure we're taking care of people, investing in the programs we need, and generating revenue accordingly in a progressive fashion. And there are lots of ways to do that. I've got a bill called the Mega Corporations Act that would generate $800 million a year simply by making sure that the largest multinational corporations aren't able to shift profits overseas and not pay taxes on them.
So why don't we do that?
We should do it. I'm for that.
That's $800 million.
$800 million a year, just by that change alone. So there are a lot of ways to generate revenue in a fair and progressive fashion, and I think that's what we should be doing.
So what you're really saying is that these high-profile requests for taxing the rich or taxing corporations may not be necessary because there are many other revenue raisers?
I think there are lots of ways to generate revenue. It's not a binary conversation, and we should be doing it in a way that is fair, that's just, that's progressive, that makes sure that that hardworking New Yorkers are not burdened when you do have, in this case, some of our biggest multinational corporations engaging in gamesmanship with the tax code.
So my last question is this. You are in a race with so many people running, I can't even keep track of them. So why you and why not all the other people who are running?
There are, this race, there really are many fine candidates in this race. It's an incredible district, so of course it's got a lot of candidates to choose from. I think the difference, what separates me is a record not just on one issue, but on a wide range of issues of using the legislative process to fight back against what's happening in Washington and get things done. That's the job we're running for, the job of a legislator who can get things done in the face of really a fascist takeover of our federal government. And that's the work that I've been doing on issue after issue, from immigration to our civil liberties, to allowing the Attorney General of our state to do work that the federal government's no longer doing, protecting consumers. And that's the record I'm running on, and the fighting spirit I'll take to Washington.
Micah Lasher, thank you for being here. I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
And thank you at home for joining us as well.